Discover the 5 incredible secrets that will transform you into a life-changing winner. In the small town of Maplewood, where the sun sets over dreams and despair, Jake stood like a lighthouse amidst crashing waves. As a dedicated high school teacher, he was the embodiment of hope, pouring his heart into every note his students played, notes that echoed through the silent homes of kids who lived for music yet often returned to the somber sounds of empty rooms. At 32, Jake carried the weight of his own family's history: a father, a stern veteran with stories weighed down by silence, and a nurturing mother whose gentle hands healed as much as they taught kindness. But this year, a shadow loomed larger than ever before. Funding cuts threatened the very music program that provided solace and expression to those children. It pierced his heart, but Jake wasn't one to back down. "We've got to save this," he declared, the determination in his voice ringing through the hallways. Jake organized a community fundraiser, hanging posters in every diner, church hall, and grocery store. He reached out to neighbors, friends, anyone who might listen. Yet, everywhere he turned, he faced uncertainty and reluctance. "Can you really save them, Jake?" whispered a familiar voice from the back of the coffee shop, heavy with doubt. It was like a punch to the gut, and Jake felt the ripple of criticism wash over him. Each face turned away, each head shook in quiet disbelief, pushing him to question everything. Was he prioritizing the dream for his students over his duty to his family and the struggling community around him? The day of the fundraiser arrived, and Jake stood in front of a half-empty gym, anticipation mingling with disappointment. The walls echoed his fears and doubts, shadows of a past where hope dimmed too often. Just then, disaster struck. His carefully crafted plans collapsed like a house of cards. Panic surged within him. Was all this a futile attempt? Just when he thought the night was over before it had begun, a glimmer of something ignited in the air. His students, fired up by a love for music that cut through the silence, jumped into action. The gym transformed into a concert hall in a flurry, each student pouring their hearts into songs that echoed joy, pain, and defiance. It was an electric moment where the energy pulsed through every soul present. The townsfolk, once skeptical, felt something shift as they were swept up by the harmony of hope. Notes from old familiar songs floated around, each chord pulling memories from their hearts. Laughter mixed with tears as the audience reacted. Expressions of awe, admiration, even disbelief painted their faces. Jake felt a lump in his throat as each cheer filled the gym. This was bigger than money. It was about community and love. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the applause cascaded through the gym, Jake wiped tears from his eyes. He realized he had stumbled onto a profound truth: success wasn't just recognition or money, but the unfaltering bond of a community coming together. Yet, a question lingered in his mind. Could he not only embrace this new vision of success but also lead a community toward a future filled with music and dreams? Amidst the cheers and clapping, uncertainty still loomed. Would they rally behind this newfound unity, or would silence return to their lives? Jake stood at the edge of transformation, his heart racing, hanging on to a flicker of hope that felt as fragile and vibrant as the music filling the air. The cheers faded into murmurs, their echoes still ringing in Jake's ears. He watched the sea of faces around him, each one illuminated by the soft glow of hope represented in the flickering lights above. There was something magical in the air, an energy that pulsed through the crowd like a heartbeat, alive, breathing, unstoppable. But this was just the beginning, and Jake knew as the last notes of the encore lingered in the gymnasium, Jake felt a weight lift off his shoulders. His students basked in the afterglow of their performance, smiles broad and beaming, but for Jake, there was a stillness that lingered. The question hung heavy: how could he keep this momentum alive? The fear of slipping back into silence haunted him, lurking in the shadows of his mind. "Great job, Jake," "You really pulled it off," shouted Sarah, one of his most promising students, as she rushed up to him, her eyes shining with excitement. "Thanks, Sarah," he replied, pulling her into a quick hug. "But it's not over yet. We need to keep this going, keep the fight for our music alive." "Absolutely. What's the plan?" she asked, practically bouncing with enthusiasm. Jake's thoughts raced. Fundraisers were great, but they were just band-aids for the gaping wound of funding cuts. He turned back to the crowd, seeing a spark of unity between the townspeople that hadn't been there before. They had come together, but how could he solidify that bond? How about a community music festival? He suggested, the idea tumbling out of his mind and falling into the open air. He could see moments of realization spreading across the room, smiles forming as his words sank in. A festival? That could work. Another voice chimed in from the back. It was Mr. Thompson, the local shopkeeper. "If we all pitch in, we could make it something special. We can bring in local artists." Jake felt a swell of energy again. Ideas began flowing like a rushing river. They could set a date, sell food, perhaps charge for tickets, and invite everyone in the county. "We could even have a raffle. And I can reach out to the town council. I'm sure they'd want to support this." As the room buzzed with chatter and excitement, Jake's heart swelled with pride. For the first time, he felt like they were not just fighting against loss, they were building something new, a platform that would celebrate their community and their love for music. But as plans began taking shape, doubts crept in. Who would help? Would they really come together again when the excitement faded? What if this festival didn't go the way he envisioned it? What if he breathed, feeling the air grow heavy with uncertainty? Seeing the enthusiasm around him, Jake fought back against those doubts. They had just shown what they could do together. He needed to trust in that strength. A line had been crossed, and there was no going back. It was now or never. "All right, everyone, let's put a date on the calendar and start planning." His voice rang out, rallying the crowd. "Together, we can make this happen." The energy crackled through the air, electric with renewed purpose. But as he spoke, he couldn't shake a nagging thought. What if the festival wasn't enough? What if the unity they felt tonight was just temporary, a fleeting moment that would dissolve in the harsh light of reality? And deep down, he wondered, could he really lead them into something lasting? Exhilaration and doubt warred inside of him. As the chatter became a cacophony of excitement, Jake couldn't help but feel that a new challenge was rising, one that would test the very fabric of their community once more. Could this festival plant the seeds for everlasting change, or would it simply echo the fleeting notes of a beautiful song lost to time? The answer loomed on the horizon, and Jake was determined to find it. The next day, the first rays of sunlight seeped through Jake's bedroom window, illuminating the scattered notes and sketches from the night before. Each page overflowed with ideas, potential acts, food vendors, and activities. His mind buzzed with possibilities, but despite that thrill, a gnawing anxiety festered just beneath the surface. That he slid out of bed and padded down the hall, his coffee brewing in the background, a familiar comfort as he sifted through his thoughts. How could he turn those scattered ideas into a tangible reality? He took a deep breath, wishing for clarity. When he arrived at the school, a few of his students were already waiting. Sarah, Anna, and Robert sat together at a table, their murmurs rising and falling like laughter in the spring air. They were flipping through a stack of paper, brainstorming and jotting down names of local talents they could invite. "Hey, Jake," Sarah called, her eyes sparkling. "We were just talking about who else we could get to perform. Maybe we could contact the jazz band from last year. They were amazing." "Yes," Jake shouted, excitement bubbling up. They were running with this idea. Together, they were turning what started as a flicker into a roaring flame. His heart swelled as he watched them, each face a picture of determination and hope. The day unfolded in a whirlwind. Meetings filled the hours, parents rallied behind their kids, and neighbors flocked together to brainstorm. Jake watched as their passion replaced any lingering doubt. They were united, each new idea building on the last. "Let's set up a game area for the kids," suggested Robert. "We could have face painting and maybe even a dunk tank." "That's perfect," Anna added, swirling her hair into a bun. "You know how much the community loves fun activities." They established committees, broke into groups, and shared excitement that rippled through the entire town. Good vibes bounced from person to person, and it suffused the air with an almost palpable energy. Later that afternoon, despite the day's frenzy, Jake found a moment of solitude by sitting on the school's steps. The sun was warm against his skin. Parents and students streamed in and out, communicating plans, asking questions, and filling the space with a symphony of chatter and laughter. But beneath it all, fear still gnawed at him. What if the festival flopped? What if all their hard work unraveled under harsh criticism or bad weather? What if "Hey, you okay?" came a voice, shattering his swirling thoughts. It was Sarah, standing beside him with a soft smile. "Yeah, just thinking," he replied, forcing a smile back. "Things are coming together. We can do this, you know," she said, her reassurance like a comforting warm hug. Jake nodded but lingered on his doubts. What if it doesn't go as planned? What if it does? She replied, brow raised, proving to him that optimism could brighten the darkest corners of his mind. Her words hung in the air, and Jake felt small tendrils of hope weaving through his doubts. Something about seeing the faith in her eyes pushed back the shadows. That evening, as the sun slipped below the horizon, Jake found himself pacing in his living room. A festival was no small feat. It took coordination and enthusiasm to keep the music alive, to keep the town together. But together, they were a force of nature. As he finally settled down for the night, he looked at the calendar. A date was circled boldly in red. The festival was only weeks away. He had to believe in the community they'd rekindled, and just as he was about to close his eyes, a thought struck him. What if their festival could become more than just a gathering? What if it sparked something bigger, lasting change that could shift their town forever? But what would it take to ignite that transformation? The next morning, Jake woke with determination. The sun shone brightly, and as he sipped his coffee, anticipation buzzed in the air. Today was about turning words into action. The festival was coming, and he wanted it to matter. At school, the energy was electric. Students, teachers, and parents flowed in, ready to execute plans. Jake could feel the weight of possibility. He gathered the group together, their faces lit with excitement. "All right, team. It's time to make some calls and get the ball rolling." They dove headfirst into their tasks. Robert reached out to the jazz band while Anna connected with local artists who could showcase their work. Sarah was in charge of social media, spreading the word like wildfire across town. Jake watched as each student took ownership, pouring their hearts into every detail. As they worked, he felt a sense of belonging, a community coming alive. It reminded him of childhood days spent at the local fair, laughter echoing through the air, and friends gathered around. Everyone had a role in creating something beautiful and fun. The afternoon buzzed with energy. Committees met and ideas bounced around. The sound of laughter echoed as one group brainstormed quirky games while another tested decorations. Each piece folded together, a tapestry of enthusiasm and shared purpose, but as night fell, an unexpected challenge surfaced. The weather forecast predicted stormy skies for the festival date. Jake's heart sank. His previous doubts returned, clawing at his optimism. "Jake, we'll figure it out." Sarah was by his side, her conviction steadying a nervous heart. "What if we prepare a backup plan for inside the school?" He blinked back uncertainty. "But will people still come if it's indoors? The whole vibe is outside." "Trust me," she insisted, "people care more about the festival experience than where it's at. If we keep the spirit high, they will show up." Jake felt a spark reignite. What if her words were true? After all, festivals were about community and joy, regardless of the setting. If they embraced the change instead of fearing it, they could lead the town through a storm. Okay. Let us do it, he said, the weight lifting slightly from his shoulders. Together, they could craft an indoor festival that felt just as vibrant. It was about adapting, not retreating. The next day, the hall echoed with laughter and pounding feet as Jake's team put their plan into action. They transformed classrooms into art galleries and gymnasiums into performance spaces. It was harder work than any of them had imagined, but it felt good. As they painted signs and laid out mats, there was something crystallizing between them, a bond that stretched beyond the festival's success. Just then, a knock at the door broke their focus. Jake opened it to find Mr. Thompson, the town's mayor, standing with an encouraging smile. I like what I see here. I'd love to help promote it even if we need to shift indoors. The community needs your spirit. The weight of his words landed heavily. Could the mayor's support amplify their effort even more? Determination surged inside Jake as he accepted Mr. Thompson's offer. With his help, their festival might just be the driving force their community needed. As the team rallied with fresh energy, Jake began to envision what this festival could mean. It wasn't just a collection of events, it was a spark, a chance to unify the town and inspire lasting change. But as excitement bubbled, one thought lingered in his mind: what if the transformation they sought went deeper than just the festival itself? What if it instigated a movement for hope and resilience in their community? But would they be ready to step up when it truly mattered? The morning of the festival arrived with the unmistakable scent of rain in the air. Despite the gray clouds hanging overhead, anticipation thrummed through the school like a heartbeat. Jake stood at the entrance, watching as families began to arrive. His heart raced. This was at the moment they'd all worked for. Hey, you ready? Sarah's voice broke him from his thoughts. She was out front, clipboard in hand, her hair a chaotic halo of curls. The excitement in her eyes was infectious. Ready as I'll ever be, Jake replied, forcing a smile. Just then, the first few raindrops began to fall, light and teasing. Let us hope it holds off. They ushered families through the school's doors. The gymnasium glowed with warm string lights, and artistic displays created by local artists lined the walls. It truly was a festive atmosphere. He caught glimpses of cheerful kids running to a table adorned with colorful games and laughter spilling out of classrooms, where local bands were setting up to perform, but as the rain picked up, Jake couldn't shake the sense of dread creeping in. What if, in the midst of their careful planning, people chose to turn back? The festival may look beautiful, but would it feel just as vibrant? Jake! Come here. A voice called. It was Robert, waving Jake over to the stage where the jazz band was tuning their instruments. You should see the turnout. I think we'll have a full house. Swallowing his apprehension, Jake joined Robert. Scanning the crowd, he noticed families huddled together, chatting excitedly as they enjoyed their first sights of what had been a dream come to life. Hey! Sarah appeared at his side, catching his eye. Look over there. She pointed towards a group of parents, who were clearly speaking animatedly about their kids' crafts and ideas. Jake couldn't help but smile. There it was, the sense of community they all sought to create. But then, the rain began to pour, drumming against the gym roof, the sound nearly drowning out conversations. The mood shifted as worry flickered across some faces, and whispers of possible disappointment started. Jake's heart thudded louder. Okay, he exhaled, pulling Sarah and Robert close. Let us make sure everyone knows we're ready for this. We need to keep their spirits high. Sarah nodded, determination tightening her jaw. We tell them that even though it's raining, the festival is still happening. Let us announce it loud and clear. They hurriedly organized a small gathering. Jake took the stage, heart pounding in his chest, looking out at the faces that had come to support them. Hey everyone! He called out, voice echoing against the walls. I know the weather isn't what we wanted, but guess what? We have an amazing festival inside here together. Let us celebrate our community. Cheers erupted from the crowd, the sound lifting his spirits. As Jake stepped back, he could see the spark ignite anew, the energy swirling around like laughter. But just as he thought they had turned a corner, a loud crash echoed from the auditorium door. Panic flared. What was happening? Jake's stomach dropped. Had something gone wrong? Let us check it out. Sarah yelled, and without hesitation, they dashed towards the noise. As they approached the door, the weight of uncertainty returned. Jake's heart raced. Was this a setback or an opportunity to show that they could handle anything that came their way? Could the unexpected also become part of their story, one that resonated even deeper with their community? Jake reached the auditorium door just as another crash rang out. He glanced at Sarah and Robert, who shared a wide-eyed look of concern. What could be happening? They pushed the door open, revealing a chaotic scene. A large display of colorful artwork had toppled over, sending canvases and paintbrushes scattering across the floor. A couple of volunteers were frantically trying to pick everything up, embarrassment painted across their faces. Is everyone okay? Jake called out, stepping inside. The room was filled with tension and dismay, but thankfully, no one appeared hurt. Yeah, we're good, one of the volunteers replied, their voice shaky but resolute. We didn't brace the stands well enough. I'm so sorry. Jake felt a surge of frustration, but he knew better than to let it show. This festival meant everything to them, and he couldn't allow one mishap to derail the entire event. Let us not panic, he said, raising his voice slightly to be heard over the murmurs. We can fix this. Grab the canvases and let us set them up again. Sarah, can you help the kids redisplay their artwork? On it. Sarah nodded, her enthusiasm unshaken. Jake felt a renewed sense of urgency, rallying the volunteers as they quickly reorganized the fallen art. He started to smile as kids rushed to help with the cleanup, eager to see their work restored. The atmosphere began to shift again, as laughter bubbled up from the younger ones, eager to let nothing stop their fun. See? This is community. Robert shouted, clapping his hands to rally everyone's spirits. Everyone working together. Slowly, the crowd outside began to trickle in, curious about the ruckus. Jake looked out and found familiar faces from the neighborhood, a few of them even chuckling as they entered. Got a little excitement in here, huh? One dad grinned, pulling his daughter close. Jake felt a surge of warmth seeing that connection, the way laughter mended the cracks in their festival. In that moment, the rain outside became a distant murmur, a backdrop to the community coming together. The cleanup continued but felt less like a chore and more like an affirmation. They were all in this together. But as they finished rehanging the art, a sudden quiet fell over the room. Jake turned to see a young girl maybe 8 or 9 standing by the door, her big eyes trained on the mess. She looked lost, like she didn't quite know where she fit in. Hey there. Jake said softly, walking over to her. Are you okay? She nodded slowly, her voice small. I made something for the festival, but I didn't know if it was good enough to show. Tears threatened to spill from her eyes. Jake's heart ached. It's absolutely good enough. Do you want to find a place for it? Her face lit up with a glimmer of hope as she nodded vigorously. He reached out a hand, and she took it, her small fingers wrapping around his tightly. Together, they walked deeper into the gym, searching for just the right spot. As Jake engaged her in conversation, sharing his own excitement for the festival, the energy around them shifted once again. Others began to notice, drawn to the budding moment of connection. He could feel how the rain that had once seemed like a dark cloud now acted more like a curtain that had pulled back, revealing something beautiful emerging from the chaos. But just as they turned a corner with hope in their hearts, an urgent call rang out from the other side of the gym. There's a problem with the refreshments. Jake's heart sank anew. Would this be another hurdle, another test for their resolve? He took a deep breath, ready to charge into the next challenge. This festival was turning into something monumental, and he was more determined than ever to see it through. What more could go wrong? And how could they possibly turn it into another chance for triumph? Jake turned swiftly, adrenaline pumping through him. The urgent shout had come from the refreshment table, where a small group of eager volunteers were hovering, their faces pale and uncertain. It was a small scene, but in that moment, it felt all-encompassing. The festival's success hung in the balance. "What's wrong?" Jake called out as he strode over, fear and determination dancing in his chest. The worry etched on their faces spoke volumes. "We ran out of cups. And the lemonade is about to overflow," shouted one of the volunteers, waving frantically at the near-full pitcher. Jake's mind raced. "Okay, let us think. Do we have anything we can use instead?" He scanned the table for options, his eyes falling on an empty stack of dessert plates. "Plates!" he yelled. "Can we use plates instead?" The volunteers exchanged glances, unsure but willing to try. They quickly gathered the plates as Jake reassured them, "It's not perfect, but it'll work for now." The energy in the room began to shift as they sprang into action, grabbing cups and plates. Meanwhile, the young girl beside him, who had been quiet, tugged on his sleeve. "I can help," she said, her voice ringing with newfound confidence. Jake smiled, grateful for her willingness. "Great. Can you help me pass those plates out?" "Sure," she proclaimed, her initial hesitation washed away. Together, they began distributing the plates as the laugh of children filled the air again. Hope surged within Jake as he watched the little girl beam while handing out the makeshift cups. "Here you go," she said with each smile she shared, more alive in her role than ever before. It was incredible how much light could sprout from something that had looked like such a disaster just moments previously. As the crowd started to buzz around the refreshment table, the tension melted. Parents leaned in, accepting the quirky replacement with hearty chuckles. "What a creative way to reuse," one dad remarked, raising a plate with a grin. The chatter of happy voices drowned out the sound of rain still falling outside. This was what community meant, Jake thought, finding solutions together, embracing imperfections. Just then, a shout sent a ripple of surprise across the room. "They're here!" Another volunteer exclaimed, pointing toward the entrance. Jake turned, his heart skipping a beat. A parade of art critics from the local art center had arrived, and he knew they were there to judge the children's artwork for a special showcase. He hadn't expected them so soon. "Let's make sure the artwork is back up," Jake said quickly, directing the effort. "We need to impress them." As they moved with urgency, Jake felt the tension mount, but he knew this was a moment of truth for the kids. Each artwork they had carefully placed was more than just color splashed on canvas, it represented hope, courage, and community spirit. He glanced back at the young girl, now encouraging her friends to join in the effort, her presence transforming from shy observer to a source of inspiration. Jake felt a swell of pride. But just as they completed the display, another loud crash echoed from the other side of the auditorium. Jake's heart sank once more, dread crawling up his spine. What could it be this time? Would they weather yet another storm? And could they possibly turn their fortunes around before the judges arrived? Hope and uncertainty hung thick in the air as the afternoon teetered on yet another precipice. Jake sprinted toward the source of the crash, his heart racing. The noise came from the clump of chairs stacked precariously by the entrance. A few kids were still running about, and one had knocked them over in the chaos of excitement. He could see a couple of the art critiques already raising their eyebrows at the scene, their expressions a blend of curiosity and concern. "Kids! Let's keep it together," Jake called out, his voice ringing with authority as he moved to right the fallen chairs. The little girl had followed him, her excitement replaced by worry, as she peered at him. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her big eyes reflecting the unease in the room. Jake nodded, taking a breath. "Yes, it's fine. Just a little hiccup. We're going to be just fine." He turned and smiled at her, hoping to pass on some calm. As he regained control of the chairs, he noticed the judges advancing closer, sipping on their lemonade from the plates. Each step they took felt heavy with the weight of their expectations. Would they see the potential in the children's art, or would they judge it by their initial impressions? Let us make sure the paintings are in perfect order, Jake commanded. The volunteers, still buzzing with energy, scrambled to streamline the display. One by one, they adjusted the frames and wiped the splotches off the glass. Driven by urgency, the crowd had begun to fill the auditorium, and Jake felt the buzz of collective hope buzzing through the air. The laughter of children mixed with warm conversations of families gathered to support the young artists. It was as if the festival itself was alive, pulsating with an energy that pushed Jake forward. "Really great job, everyone!" Jake shouted, pride swelling in his chest. He caught sight of the little girl again. She was now gathering her friends to help fix the display with newfound determination. But just then, the most unexpected thing happened. A hastily tossed art piece flew through the air, hitting one of the judges in the shoulder. Jake froze in disbelief as the assembled crowd collectively gasped, eyes wide with shock. The judge, surprised, blinked at the kid who had mistakenly caused the ruckus. A beat passed as uncertainty hung thick in the air, then the judge's lips curled into an amused smile. He laughed heartily and glanced at the piece that fluttered down. "Is this part of the exhibition?" he asked, directing the question to the young artist who had thrown it. Feeling the spotlight suddenly shift, the boy stammered before managing, I meant to show you. It's a, flying turtle." The crowd erupted into laughter, and it broke through the lingering tension like sunlight on a rainy day. Jake couldn't help but grin at the scene. Maybe it was all going to be okay. Maybe the quirky nature of the festival, from makeshift lemonade cups to flying turtles, was part of the charm that would impress these judges. But just as he breathed a sigh of relief, he noticed a small child on the fringe of the crowd, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her artwork was too small to be seen over the others, and she looked completely defeated. A pang struck Jake's heart. Before he could think, he dashed over to her side. "What's wrong?" he asked, kneeling down to meet her gaze. I wanted them to see my painting, but no one will," she murmured, her voice breaking. Jake put a comforting hand on her shoulder, feeling the weight of the moment. "Let us fix that," he said fiercely, determination lighting up his voice. "You have to believe they'll see it." He could feel the energy shifting around them again. They had to rally together once more. The stakes had never been higher. How could he ensure that every child got their moment? As he carefully maneuvered to lift her drawing, Jake felt the room's attention start to shift toward them. Would her moment of glory finally find its way through the noise? And could this festival truly be a testament to the power of community when every voice matters? Jake gently lifted the small painting from the display. The canvas trembled slightly in his hands, fragile and overwhelmed by the larger work surrounding it. He could hardly distinguish what lay beneath the splashes of color and bright brush strokes, but he could see the spirit of the artist shining through. "Everyone, look!" he shouted, voice cutting through the chatter of the crowd. The auditorium quieted, eyes turning in curiosity. The little girl, still biting her lip, stepped a little closer as Jake held up her artwork. "This is a masterpiece created by one of our youngest artists. Let us give it some love." As he turned the painting around to face the audience, a small gasp escaped his lips. A simple drawing of a tree stood tall, with vibrant, oversized fruits hanging from its branches. Sunlight beamed down on it, and underneath it, a family of stick figures held hands in a line, grinning broadly. It captured innocence in the purest form. "Wow!" came a voice from the back. "That's beautiful." Cheers erupted from different corners of the room as claps followed quickly. The little girl's face glowed with surprise and joy, the tears now replaced with shining determination. Jake took a deeper breath, feeling the atmosphere shift as he backed away and lowered her artwork for a moment, allowing the audience to engage fully. "We often overlook the little things, don't we?" he said, shifting his gaze to the judges. "But let us not forget that every piece of art tells a story and deserves to be heard." He took a step forward, his pulse quickening. The judges leaned in closer, intrigued by the raw emotion emanating from the art and the young girl. "Can you tell us about your painting?" Jake asked, his gentle encouragement echoing in the stillness. "I made this tree," she began, a spark igniting in her eyes as she bravely stepped forward. "It's a family tree. I wanted to show how happy we are together." The crowd melted with admiration. The larger, more intricate works disappeared for a moment, as all eyes soaked in the simplicity and truth of her vision. This was what the festival was truly about, Jake realized, celebrating every voice, big or small. Jake felt his chest swell with pride as the applause grew. "Beautiful!" a judge exclaimed brightly. "You've captured something special here. Would you like to hang it over here, front and center?" The little girl's face lit up, and she nodded vigorously, her smile stretching from ear to ear. Jake turned back to the crowd, his heart racing with enthusiasm. This was her moment, and he felt the importance of it spreading through the auditorium like a warm embrace. As the volunteers quickly rearranged the display, Jake glanced around and saw the expressions on the faces of the other children. They were buzzing with newfound hope and confidence. Maybe they, too, would have their moments to shine. But as the crowd settled again, he felt a flicker of worry in his gut. What if the judges still didn't grasp the festival's magic? What if they overlooked the very essence that was radiating through the auditorium? Just then, he caught eye contact with the youngest judge, a woman with kind eyes and a soft smile. She clutched the drawing, as if it were a treasure. "Thank you for reminding us what art is all about," she said with genuine warmth. Jake's heart raced with hope, but another wave of uncertainty washed over him. Would this tiny victory be enough to change the tide for everyone? Ahead lay a journey filled with both possibilities and challenges. He felt the pull of something bigger than just this festival brewing on the horizon. "Jake!" a voice called out sharply, snapping him from his thoughts. It was his assistant, eyes wide with urgency. "You need to see this." Jake turned, tension building in his chest once again. What was happening now? Could he hold this moment of hope with the little girl's art, or was something else about to unfold that could shift the entire event? Jake dashed toward his assistant, heart pounding. What else could possibly go wrong? As he approached, he could see the excitement on the assistant's face, mixed with an undeniable urgency that sent a chill down his spine. "What is it?" "There's a big turnout outside. People are piling in despite the rain," she exclaimed, grinning from ear to ear. It was almost too good to be true. Relief washed over him. Maybe, just maybe, this festival was turning into something bigger than anyone expected. He rushed outside, heart racing with a mix of anxiety and hope. As he stepped onto the entrance porch, he felt the energy of the crowd. Families, children, and friends flooded in, embracing the warmth of the gathering, rain or shine. They were ready to celebrate. "Look at this," Sarah said, pointing eagerly at the throng of people. "They're here for the festival." Jake's chest constricted with happiness. The heart of the town had shown up, undeterred by gray skies and setbacks. "Let us keep this momentum going," Jake shouted. "Let us remind everyone why we're here." Cheers erupted as he led the crowd back inside, where the gymnasium buzzed with life and color. Everywhere Jake turned, laughter mixed with music and cheer. It felt like a dream, a song that had finally risen to its crescendo. Each booth, each art piece, every joyful face breathed vibrancy into the air. "Jake!" The little girl from earlier rushed up to him, clutching something tightly in her hands. It was a tiny paper crafted into a tree, just like her drawing. "I want to show everyone." "Let us do it." Jake beamed and guided her to the center stage. As the crowd settled, she stood proudly, presenting her creation. The warmth and appreciation pouring back toward her lit a fire in the crowd, applause echoing joyfully. It was then Jake realized how far they had all come together. This wasn't just a festival, it was the spark of a movement of change, unity, and resilience. It wasn't about perfect performances or deep pockets, it was about hearts filled with passion, joy, and belonging. More kids came forward, inspired by the young artist. Their paintings, their crafts, and their enthusiasm took center stage. Jake watched in awe. Every child had their moment of recognition, their contribution celebrated, wrapping the audience in a warm embrace of togetherness. But in the back of his mind, he still felt that leap: could this really mean lasting change? As evening approached, the rain finally let up, and soft hues of twilight illuminated the gym. As families mingled, Jake managed to catch the eyes of the local leaders and judges. With a swell of confidence, he approached them. "Thank you for coming," he began, his voice steady. "This isn't just about art. It's about connection. About creating a future for our kids, for this community. The festival shows what we can achieve when we come together." The lead judge nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. There was something in Jake's heart that felt so much more than hope, it was belief. Together, they could reach for something monumental. As the night drew near its end, a surprise announcement rang out. "We are proud to present awards for our young artists." Each child's heart raced in anticipation, their creations celebrated, showcasing their hard work and creativity. Jake felt tears prick his eyes as cheers echoed around him, and he realized transformations were indeed happening not just in this gym but in their minds and hearts. In that moment, Jake understood. His community had grown stronger, more united. By embracing their shared passion and support for the arts, they had cultivated a garden of dreams, fostering connections that would last beyond this event. "Let us promise to keep this spirit alive," he called out as people began to gather closer for the final moments. "Our journey doesn't end here. Together, we can champion music, creativity, and community." And the crowd erupted in applause as Jake's vision for his students, for Maplewood, and for his family rose with the shared sounds of joy. It filled his heart with an indescribable warmth. This was not just a festival, it was the beginning of a beautiful transformation. As they all stood united, hearts worn on their sleeves, the light of hope flickered brighter than ever. You need to subscribe now to get the exclusive stories that will inspire and uplift you. This is the moment to show your support by leaving a like, as it truly helps me touch more lives. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. I want to hear your thoughts and connect deeply with you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation happen. Together we can spread hope and change.